Good morning, guys. Okay, so today let's continue from where we stopped. We're talking about muscles of the pectoral region. Do you understand? Then, if you remember when we're talking about P major, we said that P major, one of the unique features that between P major and clavicle is what a pectoral fascia called clavipectoral fascia. I want us to discuss clavipectoral fascia before at the shoulder. Okay, then let's talk about clavipectoral fascia. Clavipectoral fascia. So what do you have to know about this guy? Okay, so the first thing is an introduction. MB students take notes. Can come out for you and stay short. Clavipectoral fascia introduction. So it is a pectoral fascia. Sorry, I say is a deep fascia of the pectoral region because I have two deep fascia of the pectoral region. I have pectoral fascia and clavipectoral fascia. So it's a deep fascia of the pectoral region. So the deep fascia of the pectoral region between, look at the word, clavicle and clavicular, see the clavicle and clavicular head of P major. Between and clavicular head of what P major. So what else do you have to know about this guy? Remember I said is a deep fascia between clavicle and what deep fascia of the pectoral region between clavicle and what clavicle and the clavicular head of P major. Then another thing you have to know about this guy is that it protects axillary vessels and cords of brachial plexus So that's the function of this guy. Then the next thing I want us to look at this guy is the boundaries. Not actually the boundaries, attachments. Where does this guy attach? Attachments. So it has a superior attachment, inferior attachment, then medial and lateral attachment. What is the superior attachment of this guy? It attaches above at the subclavian groove. Subclavian groove. Please, when we do subclavius, make a small mistake. This subclavian groove is located at what? They say this is the clavicle. This is the exterior aspect of the clavicle. The middle one third, not actually the half, the middle one third of the inferior aspect of the clavicle. So that's why you see subclavian groove. Then inferiorly, it attaches at the deep fascia of the axilla, that is axillary fascia. Deep fascia of the axilla, deep fascia of the axilla. Then medially, it attaches to first and second ribs with their anterior intercostal membrane. With the anterior intercostal membranes. Then laterally, it attaches at the coracoid process. Coracoid process and coracoclavicular ligament. Coracoclavicular ligament. Coracoclavicular ligament. So these are the attachments of this guy. Then the next after my introduction, attachments. Then the next one is parts. Parts. Okay, don't worry, let me draw it so you understand the parts. Okay. If you come to parts of clavipectoral fascia, okay, let's say this. Okay. Let's say this is the subclavian groove. So it begins from the margin of the subclavian groove. And now come down, now splits to enclose a muscle, then extend down again, splits to enclose a muscle, then now attach at the deep fascia of the axilla. So this is deep fascia of the axilla. So this is the deep fascia of the axilla. Then, so this is the subclavian groove. Then these are the two muscles it closes. The first one is subclavius, and the second one is PE minor. PE minor and subclavius. Then, okay, look at now the three parts. Are you seeing this first part? So this is a this first part is called costocoracoid ligament. So the part between subclavian groove and subclavius. Then this part between subclavius and P minor is called um, costoclavicular costoclavicular membrane. This one is costocoracoid ligament. This one is costoclavicular membrane. Then this part between P minor and the deep fascia of the axilla is called suspensory ligament of axilla. So the three parts of clavipectoral fascia are what? Costocoracoid ligament, costoclavicular membrane, and what? Suspensory ligament of axilla. So you need the reason why anytime you're mentioning suspensory ligament, you need to be specific. Because have suspensory ligament of axilla or suspensory ligament of Cooper, have suspensory ligament of penis, have suspensory ligament of Lockwood, have suspensory ligament of Ovis. So they are named. So you need to be specific. Then the next thing is structure that pierces it. So what structure pierces clavipectoral fascia? We have structure that pierces it inwardly and structure that pierces it outwardly. So inwardly, let's say example is going inside like this, then outwardly is coming outside like this. So I will say inwardly, I will say ceolot. Okay, I will say CL. Then for outwardly, I will say LT. So what do I mean by CL? So this is CL. C is cephalic vein, L is lymphatics or lymph vessels accompanying infraclavicular lymph nodes. Lymph vessel accompanying infraclavicular lymph nodes. The one outwardly is lateral pectoral nerve and thoracoacromial artery. Thoracoacromial artery and its branches. When we do axillary and thoracoacromial, say I have four branches: deltoid branch, clavicular branch, acromial branch, and pectoral branch. So this is all you have to know about pectoral fascia. Stay tuned to proceed towards the muscles of the shoulder. Thank you.